You brought up communication, and I think that one of the biggest challenges that has been identified is just being able to communicate with all the relevant stakeholders. What are some of the challenges that let's start with the doctors. What are some of the challenges that you face in creating a care plan from doctor's orders? That's got to be difficult, right? Because it's not like you can just pick it up and say, hey, doc, what did you mean by this? Help me understand that, right?
Oh, yes.
Talk us through that. What's the big challenge there?
It's always been a challenge, communication. And you hate to, use the stereotype, but doctor's handwriting is difficult at times to sometimes see, because even though
it's a stereotype for a reason, right?
It is, exactly. And even though
the fact that we're still using that is just
still a lot of
crazy.
Still a lot of handwritten notes that come and go. Even though we have access to electronics and different things, but a lot of handwritten notes, and it's a lot of taking it to one of your peers and say, can you read this?
Are you a good doctor handwriting translator?
Exactly, and becomes a talent. There are certain people that have a talent for it.
Sure.
I will say that.
I'm sure.
So that communication is difficult. And then, we deal a lot with surgeons. Surgeons aren't always that readily available.
Right.
You place a phone call to the office and usually they're directed to, their medical assistant, who then takes a message and says, I'll get back to you. Now, again, I mentioned earlier, as a therapist, I'm not by the phone waiting for that phone call because I've got other patients to see as well.
Yeah, you're taking care of your patients.
So the end of the day comes and maybe you check the voicemail and, there's a voicemail. Hey, this is Dr. So-and-so's office getting back to you. Can you call us back? Well, now it's after 5 o'clock. They're closed. So it gets pushed back to the next day. So you're like, so that phone tag just kind of goes.
And yet the patient still needs treatment, right?
Yes.
This patient has now been handed off to you. And so here they are in your facility. You need to start on some sort of plan, but yet there's a stopgap, right? There's a bottleneck here of communication. How long does it take on average to get clarity when you run into these situations where you're not quite sure?
Yeah. So, for example, you could say, okay, a patient comes to you from the hospital, has some notes, his orders from the surgeon. Okay, well, you see that patient, they get there late on, say, a Thursday afternoon. Well, you don't see that patient until next Friday morning. Friday morning comes, you're like, I need to clarify this. I'm not sure exactly what he means. You ask the patient goes, well, he said something, but I don't remember what he said.
Right.
So you're like, okay, place the phone call. They get back to you late afternoon, Friday. Our office is closed by the time I get the message. I can't call them back. It's Friday afternoon. So I'm pushed off to Monday morning to make that phone call. Well, you call again Monday, and sometimes that's the day the surgeon's in the operating room. So he's still not available.
So we're literally 5 days out at this point with no answer.
Difficult, very challenging to really progress that patient along as quickly as you like. And, we're under pressure from the payer source. Insurances are like going, well, you need to, move these things along.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I would love to, but I don't have a clarification of what I can do and what precautions that the doctor really wants us to have. So,
and it's really, you think about it, it's no fault of any individual, right? It's a challenge in the system that we have. It's not like the doctor's trying to do anything wrong. The patient is not intending to forget, but yet instructions are given to patients when they're in recovery, which I think anybody that's been in that situation would agree that you're not going to remember anything as you're coming off of that anesthesia, right? I was talking to a surgeon recently that said, I go in and visit my patient every single time after the surgery, and 100% of the time they don't remember what I said because of that the state that they're in at that point. So we could be 5, 6, 7 days out. You're getting pressure from payers to progress this person forward. And yet we're just trying to find the baseline of where do we start. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a big challenge.